Building a business can be tough, and picking a name can also be a significant challenge, especially when so many names are taken, and frankly, a lot of names are sort of, squatted where like the name's taken, but it's not really being used, so you don't really have, conflict from an intellectual property point of view, but so the particular things are not available, and going through the hunt of like, let's look at it through say GoDaddy or what have you. It can be really kind of a pain, like trying to go find that domain, sort of hunt and peck. This is actually where AI becomes really useful. And it also shows how we can use AI in a way that focuses on tool calling using MCP. And it shows where some of these, even the coding-based systems can be really, really helpful for these kinds of business tasks. Let's get into Warp. Warp is actually one of my favorites because I really like Warp because Warp is so integrated into the terminal, right? Because I can do things like in the terminal sort of discover where I am and, documents. And like anything you can do in the terminal, you can also do in Warp. And you can even ask it to try to do things for me. Like, list all the subdirectories in my GitHub. And it will, go look for the GitHub subdirectory and tell me how many there are in there. And then I can actually take it like down another step, and for each of the projects in my GitHub directory, tell me how much space they use. And it will figure out, right, how to make some of these more complicated, bash level commands. It demystifies a lot of what you might do with the terminal, and even someone like me who sort of understands how a lot of the terminal stuff works, I gotta say, thinking through how to be, doing some of these things can be a little bit more challenging, take up time, and now I don't need to because I'm sort of using the Warp stuff. It also marks itself as a coding-based platform. But the other thing it is a generalized tool calling AI system. And so I can start to ask, more business side questions, right? And I don't, and even though I can do terminal things in here, I don't have to do terminal things. I can start to ask, like, how can I answer some business questions? Like, what would be a good, name for a business that for a media business, right? Business that discusses, hard AI concepts using puppy videos. And it will start to work the problem, right? And it comes up with some ideas, but the fact is those ideas might or might not have like available names or what have you, right? So we start doing this kind of business ideation, and we need to actually ground it in data. Now we know that like, hey, one thing I could do is I could go over to GoDaddy and start looking things up, or use whatever your favorite Whois system is, and that might not even be enough because now you also need to ask like, over on YouTube, what handle might be available, for you. And, if you know your way around YouTube, you can start to, start punching in @ or use the search or whatever. But then you start asking about Instagram, right? And what handles might be available there. And you ask about TikTok and what handles might be available there. And now you're trying to cross-reference those. And it can be sort of, a bunch of work that's really kind of a pain. But you don't need to do it that way. You can actually get the machine to do it and sort of figure out where these things are going to line up. And this is where MCP becomes really helpful, because MCP allows us to have the AI take its intelligence and the fact that it likes to do things fast and ground it for us. So for that, we make use of this, model context protocol thing. Like that is, sort of, you can learn more about how to build your own. In fact, I built one for making this video, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the thing I really want to do is talk about like how to find MCP servers that can be useful here. Now, over here in Warp, right, you have, up here I've got my little, icon about me, and I can go to settings, right? Or I think I can do it over here. Yeah, I can pick settings off the menu as well. And then I can, where it says AI, and now I have these MCP servers. Now, I can add MCP servers using the standard JSON structure. And I'll show you how we can do that. So, but to do that, we're going to know what MCP server we want to add. And yes, it's going to be filling out some JSON, which is a little weird, but whatever. And now we're going to look up, who is MCP server. Whois is a service that basically GoDaddy etc. uses to find out what's available right in the world for domains. And you'll find that there are a number of them out there, and I'm just using the Dia browser to be doing the search for me to go find MCP servers that happen to be available. And here, this one here is pretty common, so I can copy this. This is actually a command line for MCP. A lot of MCP servers boil down to either doing a UVX or an NPX command line. And so when I find that npx-y blah blah blah, that's usually a pretty good sign here. And in fact, you'll find that there is the GitHub MCP repository, right, which is this guy's repository, which you made over in GitHub, but actually is available through npm, because that's what npx means to be able to do. So now what I can do is go back over to my warp, and I can say, I'll call it whois, and I can just there's a little bit like, hey, what do I set up in here, right? If you just paste in the actual command line, what it will do is you can just say save here, and then if I just click into it again, and I say pencil, you see it actually broke it up into the command and the arguments. So I don't need to figure out how to do all those commands and arguments to make all that stuff work. So I'll just say save here, and I'll just say, now it's starting. Now, when it starts, what will happen here is it will identify the tools that are available. You see the who is domain, who is TLD, who is IP, who is as, and those become tools that are available to the AI. And so now I can ask over here, which of those names are, have available, domains with an appropriate TLD. TLD is a top level domain. So it's like .com and .tv and all that. And really the cool thing is I don't have to do any reset or whatever, right? Just the fact that I added the server means that the very next request will be able to make use of it. And you can see that it's going to ask for my permission to run it. Yep. And I can now do, if I tell it to, I can also tell it that I want to always have it, sort of continue. So I'm not asking about each of them. By doing Command Shift I, and now it is you can sort of see here it's in fast forward mode, and I'm sort of saying YOLO your way through it. Now it's super convenient. Now even though it said failed to update server up here, it's actually running through and telling me about what domains might be available by going and looking all this stuff up. So instead of me having to go ask all these questions, it is just figuring it out on the domain basis, and sort of comes back with the domains that would be working here, right? Neural pups, we are the algorithm, all sorts of sort of cutesy names, but that's still not quite enough, right? I might have a domain or a .com or even a .ai. I don't see any .tv ones, but that might be a domain that I might want to use as well. But now might be a time to ask, like, well, but what about the channel thing? Like I was talking about YouTube and Instagram or whatever. What if those things are going to be available? Well, now it's time to go look for a server for that. Now, I actually went looking for the server, and I couldn't find one that did it, so I made one, and I one-shot it pretty quickly using Codex. But we can look up, npm. Social media handle checker, MCP. We'll see if it actually finds mine. This one like downloads things, whatever. But mine's relatively new, so I'm not sure it really has that much authority yet. But if I were just to go look for social, this is actually one that I made and that you can get yourself. I'll put a link to it at the bottom of the video. And I can just make use of this. Now, I don't even need to figure out how to use this, right? It gives me instructions on what the commands are, right? Including like, hey, look, you can sort of pop this stuff in, and it will just work. So let me show you how that works. I can now go back over to here and go over to my MCP servers. And if you forgot how to get to MCP servers, again, you click on the dot, click on settings, click on AI, and manage MCP servers. I can just add another one. And I can say, well, this other one, I'm just going to highlight all that stuff in there and paste, right? And now I have my social media checker. Save. Connecting. See how it works. That's running. See, now it has all of this stuff, right? It checks YouTube handle, TikTok handle, Threads, X, etc. The cool thing is you can check the handles without having to log in, so it sort of makes use of that. It's not even using APIs, it just uses, I'm going to go fetch that stuff. And it all runs locally, right? So this will only work with things that are like work, that runs on your particular machine. Now I can say back over here, all right, those seem good, but which ones have available handles on YouTube and the video-friendly socials? And not only does it determine whether they're available, but also we'll be able to look up, is there much there? So like one of the things it does sort of looks at the names kind of grossly, but then we can start, particularly as we get a particular name, we can start to ask which names, which variants, right, we really might be able to do, because it's not available on Instagram, but here's a variant that's available on Instagram that seems like it's close enough to be useful, and determining whether there is actually some other popular person who's using that particular name on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and you can just be able to determine which of these is actually going to be available. See, hey, look, all these things are available, right? Allowed for almost all. Okay, fine. And then taken. I can say, okay. I'm liking neural pups. What are names? What handles close to that one are available on Instagram, Threads, and X. Particular, so we can't, basically just not more than that, right? And then it will start looking at those channels in particular, right? So now I'm sort of working with the system. It's ideating to sort of identify what things might be available to me. Different variants, right? It starts to sort of work the problem. We're allowing the AI to work the problem for us. And one of the very nice things is it will just sort of keep on working even if I don't have this in the foreground, or I can be working on something else for a while, etc. That's one of the ideas behind being so-called agentic, is that it's running without me and is able to sort of keep on going. Now, if I didn't actually have this fast forward turned on, what would happen here is it would, when it would hit a pause point, I'm not sure there are any pause points for me right now. It would, if I'm on a different tab, it'll remind me that there's something to, hey, see over here, like what would be a new name, blah, blah, blah. And I can click on this and it'll take me back to that tab just so I can kick something off and I don't forget about it later. But all of this is super useful, right? So like I can, look for these things. Some of these things I can try to create accounts. It says some of these things might be available, right? As well, but but there might be an issue with the handle checking service, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so engineer taking responses. Okay. So so it's possible that it just sort of looks like it's taken, but you got to look for yourself. So it's asking me to, get that thing more dialed in. But as a result, I can, with far less time, be able to figure out what seems to work, what domain seems to go with it. It likes neural pups. Okay, well, I can just sort of ask. Let's quickly validate that. Neuralpups.com. Yep, there it is. It's available. And then I can start to act on it. So by going through this kind of process, I can very quickly come up with a name that seems to fit, that has cross availability, not just in terms of the domain, but also in terms of the kinds of socials that you might want to be able to associate with it. And you get to sort of, keep on marching forward. And oh my goodness, this is such a faster way to be making use of the name. And it all just kind of shows the power of these systems where, like, because I'm chatting around, okay, save the information about the neural pups names and your favorite 2 alternatives alternatives to, DNS choices.md. And it will just save it to a text file for me, which is also, I gotta say, really cool, because it will, then I just sort of have the file and I can be sharing the file with someone else or be doing whatever it is I want to do with it. The fact that saving it as a file just gives me so many more options, right, than having to do like some super specific, let's have it be all the way down. Yeah, okay, we're gonna just accept that. And it will, save the file. And now, because the file exists, one of the really neat things about Warp is I can just go back and forth, right, between thinking of this as an agent and just saying more DNS choices, right? I can sort of see the file. Hey, I'm very happy with this file. Great, I get to move on. This is like a little bit of the power that I found in making use of Warp as a system that isn't just about coding, which is kind of like the way they're marketing themselves right now, but is about being able to work with my machine, being able to use it as an alternative to the terminal, and then because I'm able to go back and forth, make use of these MCP servers, really turning into a power tool that allows me to even ideate and build out the marketing side of my business. If you found this helpful, I hope that you will, subscribe to the channel, and we'll be doing, more fun, unexpected things with AI in the days and the weeks to come. Talk to you soon.